Researchers who take Bigfoot seriously don't take every alleged Bigfoot video seriously. In fact, they're often the first to call foul on the fakers. So when they tell us they've seen video they think is legit, we take a look too.
The forests don't just breathe, they murmur, they watch, and sometimes they reveal things we aren't ready to see. August 20th, 1992 would be one of those rare, shattering moments. The Blue Mountains of Oregon stretched in dense, impenetrable waves of green, a place where civilization had only lightly pressed its fingerprints. Here, in a remote clearing near Deduck Spring, an experienced man named Paul Freeman stepped carefully through the undergrowth, unknowingly moving toward a moment that would ripple through the world of Bigfoot research for decades. Paul Freeman wasn't some starry-eyed dreamer. A former U.S. Forest Service patrolman, Freeman had spent weeks returning to this isolated spot after discovering peculiar signs, unusually large, human-like footprints pressed deep into the soft earth. It was not just one track or two, it was an entire scatter of them, weaving their way through the forest like silent echoes of something enormous. Standing among the moss and fallen branches, Paul observed the ground intently. "It looks like they've been here," he muttered, crouching low. His voice was steady, but the air around him crackled with something unseen, something just beyond the veil of certainty.
Oh, there he goes.
The tracks were fresh. Whatever had made them, it was still close. The tension in the air thickened. As Paul pressed deeper into the woods, the stillness was shattered. A sudden rustle, a sharp crack of brush snapping under heavy weight. Freeman froze. His senses sharpened into a razor's edge. Then, through the branches, a figure, massive, upright, moving with a lumbering, purposeful gait that no human could mimic. The camera, clutched in Paul's trembling hands, captured what would become one of the most debated pieces of evidence in cryptozoological history. There it was, the creature, slipping between the trees, heavy strides parting the undergrowth, arms swinging low and deliberately with each powerful step. Big strides, researchers would later say, analyzing the footage frame by frame, the way the arms swung, the way the hair lay naturally across the shoulders. It wasn't the awkward movements of a man in a suit. It was something else, something real. Paul's instincts screamed at him to run, but training and raw determination kept him rooted. He had found the tracks. Now, he had seen the maker. Hours later, another chapter unfolded, not in the wilds, but in the quiet basement of the Freeman home. Mike Freeman, Paul's teenage son, was there, lost in the mundanities of an ordinary day. When his father burst through the door, Mike heard the heavy footfalls before he saw him. Climbing the stairs two at a time, Mike reached the landing just as Paul stumbled into view, a disheveled mess of sweat, dirt, and a ghostly pale face. His hands shook violently, clinging to the precious footage like it was a holy relic.
I kind of ran up the stairs, and here's my dad standing there, and he's covered in sweat and dirt, and he's pale in color, and he's shaking. I always tell people that that's the only time in my entire life that I ever saw my dad scared of anything.
"I always tell people," Mike would later say, his voice tinged with awe, "that's the only time in my entire life I ever saw my dad scared of anything." Paul Freeman, a man who had faced wild animals, forest fires, and the unpredictable dangers of the wilderness, was rattled to his core. Whatever he had seen, whatever he had captured on film, had cracked something deep inside him. The circle of trust. Word of the encounter traveled fast among those who lived and breathed Bigfoot research. One of the first to step forward was Cliff Barackman, a respected field researcher and a close friend of the Freeman family. For Cliff, Paul's encounter wasn't just an isolated story. It fit into a larger tapestry that Paul had been weaving for over a decade. Paul wasn't just filming chance encounters. He was mapping them. Every report, every set of tracks, every whispered sighting was carefully recorded on a sprawling map pinned up in his basement. Dates, coordinates, environmental conditions, all carefully logged with a precision that would rival professional scientific studies. This wasn't the wild theorizing of a man chasing myths. It was a methodical, data-driven hunt for the truth, one that had quietly attracted the attention of anthropologists, biologists, and PhDs across the country. More scientists had pored over Paul's collected evidence than over any other Bigfoot dataset in history. For Barackman, one glance at the 1992 footage was enough to draw a compelling parallel. It mirrored the legendary Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967, that iconic sequence of a massive, ape-like figure striding through Bluff Creek, California. The similarities were haunting. The creature in Paul's video moved with the same heavy, deliberate grace. The head sat low on powerful shoulders. The arms were disproportionately long, swinging in a slow, pendulous rhythm. The massiveness, the musculature, the overall presence, it all pointed to something beyond ordinary. "I think it's Bigfoot," Cliff said simply, and in that simple statement hung the weight of 1,000 cautious hopes. Science meets mystery. To separate fact from fantasy, the footage was placed under a new kind of scrutiny. Wildlife biologist Floyd Hayes, accustomed to cataloging the natural world with skeptical eyes, was among the first to weigh in. Could it be a black bear, misidentified in the chaos of the moment? Hayes shook his head. Bears can rise up on their hind legs, true, but never for long, and never with the fluid, balanced stride seen in Freeman's footage. Bears had elongated snouts. This creature's face was flat. "I cannot rule this out as being the Bigfoot," Hayes concluded, a verdict that carried more impact for its careful, scientific phrasing. Then came Dr. Jeff Meldrum, a name synonymous with serious Bigfoot research. An anatomist and anthropologist by training, Meldrum had long studied Freeman's casts, massive, deep impressions that bore hallmarks of weight, movement, and anatomy unknown in hoaxes. Watching the footage, Meldrum leaned in. The creature's massiveness was undeniable. The thick trapezius muscles rising up along its neck, the small head perched atop a mountain of muscle. These weren't traits easily faked. The slow, powerful swing of its long arms sealed it. "You can't help but be struck," he said, "by how much this resembles the Patterson-Gimlin figure." The Blue Mountains held their breath once more, and the world, for a moment, leaned in closer. The marks of authenticity. The creature moved through the trees like a ghost made of muscle and shadow, and in the harsh clarity of daylight, something remarkable was revealed. The sunlight scattered naturally across its body, dancing across thick strands of hair in a way no cheap costume could fake. Unlike the synthetic shimmer of faux fur, this coat absorbed the light, showing subtle textures, a living, breathing creature cloaked in nature's own fabric. Dr. Jeff Meldrum leaned forward as he studied the footage, his keen anatomist's eye catching details that others would miss. If this was a hoax, he noted thoughtfully, it would require very skilled knowledge of animal anatomy. And not just anatomy, geography too. The location itself whispered credibility. Deduck Springs sat in a cradle of prime habitat, thick forests, fresh water, and endless tracts of unbroken wilderness. Southeastern Washington, where Freeman's encounter unfolded, possessed an almost perfect forensic laboratory. Loess soil, a superfine glacial sediment, like nature's own fingerprint pad. Tracks found here preserved ridges, lines, even the faintest whorls, the kind of micro-details only real, weighty creatures could leave behind. It was in this very soil that something astonishing was found. The first recorded skin ridge detail, primate-like dermal patterns pressed into the earth by massive, unseen feet. Proof that whatever walked these woods was built like no human. For scientists like Meldrum, the implications were serious. The evidence emerging from the Blue Mountains had undergone more rigorous peer scrutiny than any other collection in Bigfoot history. And now, Freeman's footage added a visceral visual heart to that growing body of proof. Their final judgment? Possible Bigfoot. Not fantasy, not a joke, possible reality. But Freeman's tape hinted at something even deeper, something more chilling. Eyewitnesses suggested there wasn't just one creature that day. There were two, one caught on camera, one hidden, just beyond the lens, lost in the folds of the forest. Where one walks, others may follow. And so, with the winds of mystery stirring once again through the trees, the search continued. Heat signatures in the dark. Fast forward 2 decades, across the country to the muggy, dense woods of Torreya State Park, Florida. It was May 2012, and 2 men, Stacy Brown Sr. and his son, Stacy Brown Jr., camped under a canopy of stars, chasing a legend that had haunted the American South for centuries. Unlike Freeman, the Browns came prepared for more than footprints. They carried a weapon that could see what the eyes could not, a FLIR thermal camera. The humid night pulsed with strange noises, cracks, shuffles, heavy footfalls weaving left and right, sometimes close, sometimes far. Predators, curious deer, or something far more deliberate. Suddenly, a flash of movement. Through the shimmering heat vision haze, a small, dark figure peeked from behind a thick tree. Then, it moved. In a single, fluid motion, the figure crossed a narrow clearing. Fast, purposeful, impossibly agile. Panic gripped Stacy Sr. In a voice edged with terror, he barked, "We gotta go! We gotta go! Do you got your gun?" The camera jolted and cut out. The Browns, both seasoned woodsmen, sprinted back to their truck, hearts hammering against their ribs. There, huddled in the dim glow of dashboard lights, They reviewed the footage, and there it was, a figure, mid-stride, caught in a perfect side glance, eerily reminiscent of the famous Patty pose from the 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film. The unmistakable profile, the long arms, the muscular build, and the chilling, deliberate awareness that it was being watched. For Stacy Jr., the conclusion was instant and absolute. "I knew exactly what we had," he said. "Proof, for me and my dad. Because who, after all, would be a mile and a half deep into Florida swampland on a random Tuesday night, running through the trees in the dark, without even a flashlight?" The skunk-ape connection. Florida's dense forests and swampy heartlands had always whispered of something lurking beyond human reach. The Seminoles and Muskogee tribes once spoke of Estikapkaki, the tall man, a guardian of the forests. Their oral histories reached back generations, describing a towering, powerful figure that lived in the shadows, protecting the land from those who would defile it. Modern sightings called it something cruder, but no less haunting. The skunk ape, a smaller, swamp-adapted cousin to the towering Bigfoots of the Pacific Northwest. Shorter, leaner perhaps, but no less mysterious, and carrying with it a smell, a musky, rotting odor that clung to the humid air like a warning. Noted investigator Steve Culls wasn't surprised that the Browns had found something here. Florida's wilderness had long been a cradle of sightings, with reports stacking up year after year. Different names, different shapes perhaps, but always the same undeniable truth. Something walks these woods. But could it have been a human, a prankster, lost hunter, or careless hiker? The Browns' footage, however, told a different story. Captured through thermal imaging, the figure gave off a clear, strong heat signature. No bulky clothing, no insulation, nothing to mute the infrared glow. A person running naked through the underbrush? In the middle of nowhere? In the middle of the night? Even the skeptics had to admit, the heat pattern was that of a living body, but not behaving like any human would. As experts leaned in to study the footage, the swamp around Torreya State Park seemed to fall even more silent, watching, waiting. For now, the creature slipped away again, back into legend. But the Browns had caught something real, something that left behind more than just footprints. It left a mark on everyone who dared to look closely. Creatures without chains. The figure in the Browns' footage continued to puzzle those who studied it. No articles of clothing muted its heat signature. No insulation concealed the living warmth of its body. It appeared, by every scientific measure, completely natural. Wildlife biologist Stephanie Schuttler leaned in closer, scanning the footage, the way the creature moved, the way it carried its weight. It wasn't human. It was closer, she mused, to a large primate, but not quite like any primate she had ever studied. Chimpanzees and gorillas could walk upright for brief moments. But this creature, this looming presence, bore no resemblance to their familiar gaits. Its legs seemed too long, its posture unnervingly hunched, yet balanced in a way that suggested strength rather than deformity. In Florida, speculation bloomed like vines in the swamp. Could a gorilla or large chimpanzee have escaped from one of the many private zoos that dotted the state? The idea wasn't without precedent. Exotic animals had slipped into Florida's wilderness before, sometimes never to be seen again. But anthropologist Kathy Strain had her doubts. The way the creature emerged from the trees, moving with what she called a Groucho walk, that low, bent-knee shuffle, wasn't characteristic of gorillas or chimps. It was, however, eerily consistent with what Bigfoot witnesses across decades had described. Thick arms, short muscular legs, a massive torso perched atop a headless, hulking frame. Not spindly or fragile, but dense, substantial, a walking wall of muscle. And its size, estimated at 6.5 to 7 feet tall, placed it far beyond the dimensions of even the largest primates. Whatever it wasn't some escaped zoo specimen. Echoes in the wilderness. Skepticism hung heavy over the Browns' thermal footage. If a massive creature was truly moving through the woods, why wasn't there more heat signature bleeding through the trees? The figure simply disappeared from view, leaving behind an uncomfortable silence and a flood of questions. Some suggested a hoax, a prankster daring enough to run naked through the unpredictable Florida night. But Stacy Brown Jr. offered a simple explanation. The thermal camera had died at the worst possible moment. Early generation battery-draining models were notoriously unreliable. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, a leading expert and a man who knew Stacy personally, vouched for his sincerity. Would anyone really risk their life, bare and defenseless, amid venomous snakes, prowling alligators, and a pitch-black swamp just to fool a camera? Highly unlikely. Thus, the Browns' experience earned an unsettling label: unknown creature. Not proven, not debunked, real enough to demand further investigation. Something had been there, moving, watching, and it wasn't anything we had a name for. Meanwhile, far to the north, A different kind of encounter stirred in the frozen heart of Alaska. Keith Lindsay, metal detector in hand, combed the empty wilderness outside Fairbanks when the first sound shattered the evening calm. A howl, deep and mournful, that seemed to seep up from the ground itself. Not a wolf's high melodic cry, something heavier, older. As Keith packed up to flee, the forest pressed closer. Grunts, whoops, and then a violent splash beside him, as a rock, thrown, not fallen, landed in the nearby river. Later analysis confirmed, the howls captured on Keith's recording most closely resembled a wolf. Yet wolves don't throw rocks, and in the Alaskan Triangle, a region infamous for unexplained disappearances, the wild often hides more than just predators. What had stalked Keith that night remained a mystery, one more shadow stretching across a land where facts blur into fear. Keith Lindsay's encounter wasn't random. It took place deep within the Alaskan Triangle, a notorious stretch of wilderness between Juneau, Anchorage, and Utqiagvik, where planes vanish and people disappear without a trace. Field researcher Cliff Barackman noted that unlike other great apes, Sasquatches are rumored predators, known for hunting deer, elk, and perhaps when desperate, even humans. Keith's captured howls didn't sound like ordinary animal calls. They sounded like warnings, echoes from a land where ancient predators might still roam. Native legends from the Olympic Peninsula spoke of Bigfoot not as a gentle creature, but a feared kidnapper, with stories of children stolen from canoes and tragic endings. Modern science remained cautious. Dr. Stephanie Schuttler pointed to the unlikelihood of a primate surviving Alaska's brutal winters, and the absence of physical evidence like nests or remains further muddied the waters. And yet, Keith had captured something not easily explained by wolves, wolverines, or any known creature. In Alaska's endless frozen forests, some truths may remain buried forever, waiting just beyond reach for those brave enough to seek them. The Wood Booger's shadow. In 2009, thousands of miles away from the Alaskan cold, Chuck Newton and his son blazed a trail through the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia on their ATV, unaware that they were about to join a tradition older than America itself. With the sun low and the shadows long, they witnessed it, a towering, hairy figure, crossing their path with casual indifference. The camera caught it in fleeting clarity, a massive, upright being, perhaps 7 feet tall, its body a dark silhouette against the wild green. Field researcher Cliff Barackman connected the encounter to ancient Cherokee legends of giant, hair-covered beings, not unlike the Bigfoot of the Pacific Northwest. Long before modern stories, Appalachia had its own name for the beast, the Wood Booger. Parents warned children, "Stay close or the booger will get you." It wasn't just folklore. It was survival knowledge, born from generations living at the edge of the unknown. Bigfoot, lurking in the shadows. The next incident occurred back in November 24, 2024. This actually happened to be one of the most harrowing stories when it comes to Bigfoot, as it literally causes shivers to run down the spines of anyone who happens to hear it. Don't take our word for it. Take a look at this image. In the picture, the creature seems to be lurking outside someone's window. As daunting as this image is, we are still left in a state of uncertainty, as we don't really know where this strange image was taken. To make matters worse, we do not even know who took this image. What is truly strange about this is that this is one of the scariest images of Bigfoot there is out there. I mean, imagine seeing such a creature lurking outside your window in the dead of night. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I'd ever be able to spend another night in such a place. If you can bear to look at the image, you'd notice that it has strange eyes and an ape-like face, with its broad nose, prominent brow ridge, and a straight mouth. As much as people have claimed that the sight of Bigfoot is something to behold, it's fair to say that this sighting was not one that leaves one in a state of marvel. No, this sighting is one that is bound to leave one in a state of shock. As much as we may wish that we got more context to this sighting, maybe more images or even a video, we do not need any more details to come to terms with the fact that this may be one of the most terrifying sightings of Bigfoot ever experienced. Tree-jumping Bigfoot. The next sighting that caught our attention was the one in which this lady was just trying to record a Snapchat video. Did you catch a glimpse of the creature that was moving in the background? Can you see how the huge figure launches itself from a tree? Recorded in the US, we're sure that many of the people from the United States of America and their neighbors would tell you that they have never seen anything quite like it. Just take a look at how powerful and graceful those leaps are. It begs the question of what we may be looking at. Could this be some sort of tree-dwelling creature that can hop from tree to tree with ease? Or is it the legendary cryptid that is Bigfoot? Willamette National Forest Bigfoot. Next up, we take a look at an image that was taken at the Willamette National Forest in Oregon. Taken in the summer by a trail cam that was set up deep within the aforementioned national park, it is interesting to note that the park is a known hotspot for Sasquatch sightings. Looking at the photo, it seems to epitomize everything we know about a classic Pacific Northwest scene. Just take a look at rugged terrain that is made even more beautiful by the cascading waterfall. The scene is made to be even more beautiful by the dense, lush forest that surrounds the entire place. Somehow, within this beautiful scene, this trail cam was able to capture the footage of a small cone-bearing tree that seemed to be hiding this strange figure. Although the figure looks blurry, we can almost make out some of its features. For starters, you can tell that the figure seems to have a dark coloration that stands out against the surrounding greenery. Looking at the figure, it also seems to have a bulky and humanoid shape. As you can imagine, such features have led to the belief that the trail cam may actually have managed to capture a picture of Bigfoot. Although this may be hard to believe considering the controversy surrounding the existence of Bigfoot, we may be forced to take such claims seriously because the figure does appear to be quite large, especially when it is compared to the trees close by. That said, the nature of the photo makes it difficult to determine the exact proportions of the creature in the photo. The distance, foliage angle, shadows and other obstructions just make it too difficult to get a clear image of the creature that is hiding behind the coniferous tree. The only thing we can truly tell is that the creature is mostly black. We can't tell about the texture of the creature's fur because it's just too fuzzy, at least from the distance where the image was taken or the camera's resolution. For now, we can only ponder on whether or not this could truly be a picture of the real deal. As such, there is every chance that this trail cam really captured a rare, authentic photo of Bigfoot. Bigfoot in the remote wilderness. Our next subject of interest may just be as fascinating as the photo captured by that trail cam over Willamette National Forest in Oregon. This time, we happen to come across our next subject of interest thanks to the efforts of this man who lived on the mountains surrounded by thick pines. Remote and isolated from the closest town, the man seemed to have gotten used to the unique sounds of the wilderness. To be honest, it must be something to experience when the silence of the day is interrupted by crickets chirping, coyotes howling, and bobcats screeching. However, although he was used to such sounds, a certain sound would leave him in a state of shock and wonder. Don't take our word for it, just listen to it yourself. According to the man who happened to hear this chilling howl, he claimed to be having a relaxing time in his living room when his peace was shattered by the sound of the shrill cry from the distance. As someone who got used to living in the woods, it says a lot when he claimed that this sound was quite unlike anything that he had ever heard in his life. As you can imagine, the sound was so unique that he just had to step outside and see if he could trace the source of the noise for himself. For better or for worse, this was when he was hit with this wave of nervousness and unease. In that moment, he realized how exposed and vulnerable he was out there. Maybe coming out there to look for the source of the chilling howl was not a good idea after all. He felt so anxious and tense that he was certain that he wasn't alone. There was definitely something out there that was watching him. Hoping to calm himself down, the man tried to convince himself that this must be the howl of a coyote or something. Unfortunately, his knowledge of the creatures that made their way around this neck of the woods told him that these coyotes only seem to be so vocal when dusk is approaching, not the middle of the day. Furthermore, they also seem to release long, drawn-out howls when they are trying to communicate with each other across long distances. This seems to be a stark contrast to the sounds which were attributed to Bigfoot. Those sounds, much like the one that disturbed the man's peace, seemed to be eerie in nature. Some may say that these noises seem to be mournful in nature. A further study of the howl may need to be done in order to be sure of what we have here, but for now, there are many Bigfoot enthusiasts who are convinced that these mournful howls must have been released by Bigfoot. Maybe one day, we'll be able to know the truth about it. Quebec Bigfoot. Let's take a look at this unsettling image of Bigfoot, shall we? Apparently, this troubling image has been referred to as the Beast of Seven Shoots. It has caused a stir in the public since June of 1995, and it is almost easy to see why at first glance. The photographer just happened to be exploring the woods of Quebec, Canada when he took the infamous photo. Rumor has it that he wasn't even aware of the creature's presence, or that he was within its proximity when the incident occurred. There is almost every chance that he may not have even believed in the existence of the legendary cryptid while he was out there, but we guess that must have changed after he took the picture. What we do know is that he only became aware that he had captured the photo of what appeared to be Bigfoot after he processed the said photo. As you can imagine, the nature of the creature in the image caused quite a stir when it hit the news. Just take a look at it. At first glance, we can see that it has a prominent brow ridge. Next, we notice that it had a snout, and it appeared to be large and hairy. What also seemed to be interesting about the creature is that it seemed to be holding what looked like a small white animal. Could be a bunny, we don't know, maybe even a dog. Our guess is as best as yours. What we also don't know is what exactly this creature is. As usual, people guessed that it could be a bear. However, many have claimed that this could be a good old-fashioned case of pareidolia. That is the tendency for humans to notice what they considered to be meaningful patterns or images in random places. Many of you will know that this is a common occurrence. How many of you guys have spotted faces in trees or clouds? What we have observed is that this phenomenon of pareidolia also seems to occur in the case of identifying Bigfoot in the wild. Whether it's a blurry photo or video, many seem to have spotted what they consider to be Bigfoot when they look at images such as this. What's also interesting about this image is that further investigation revealed that there was nothing still or stationary in the area. As such, we may be compelled to believe that there was a live creature in the area. Large, hairy, and ape-like in its facial features, some believe that this could have been a baboon thanks to its vague resemblance to the primate. But alas, baboons are not native to the country of Canada. As such, many have claimed this could be a species of Bigfoot known as the Gugwe. Large, muscular, and aggressive with its dog-like face, we even have a collection of photos by community members that depict what this creature looks like. Is there any chance that this could be our Bigfoot? Please let us know what you think in the comments section. Bigfoot in the woods. Next up, we take a look at a video clip that has been doing the rounds of TikTok of all places. When it was uploaded on the 25th of October 2024, everyone was drawn to the video because of the caption, which claimed that Bigfoot was spotted behind a tree in the woods. Interestingly enough, we only came across this phenomenon thanks to this man who was hiking in a remote spot that was far from any signs of civilization. This would be where the man would have a strange, unexpected encounter with what looked to be a tall, dark creature standing within the trees. At first, the man could only make out its silhouette. However, the man soon realized how huge it was. Considered to be quite large and broad, many believed this to be the real deal. However, there were many skeptics who believed that this could be a costume or a hoax, especially as the creature seemed to be motionless in most of the video. However, as the creature seemed to be moving around, as some argued, they were compelled to believe that this hiker may have got a glimpse of the real deal. They also seemed to be convinced by the fact that the man seemed to be in a mountainous region, as many believe that Bigfoot seems to linger in such an area. As usual, the debate went on, with the skeptics relying on their usual go-to by claiming that the creature was a bear. To be honest, it's possible that they were right. It could be anything between a black bear or a grizzly bear, who knows? However, the Bigfoot enthusiasts just won't let up. They claim that the creature was much larger than a bear, and as such, it must be the legendary cryptid. Add the fact that the recorder of the video also believed that this could be Bigfoot. Again, what side of the fence are you guys on? Grizzly bear or Bigfoot? Please let us know in the comment section. Trail cam Bigfoot. Let's take a look at another image captured by a trail cam. At first glance, there are many who would claim that this was definitely the image of a Sasquatch. Who could blame them for thinking so? Just look at the image of this Bigfoot-like creature as it sat right in the midst of a bunch of fallen branches. As captivating as this image was, many claim that the bunch of branches could be the source of confusion as to what this creature was, as the branches created a sort of natural blind. Looking at the position of the creature in the image, it looked as though it was comfortable with its surroundings, almost as though it felt right at home. Some have even claimed that it was so familiar with said surroundings that it being behind the bunch of branches was its attempt at concealing itself. They also claim that its standing upright behind the branches could confirm that it was the fabled cryptid, as this is believed to be the natural poise of Bigfoot. After all, it is a bipedal creature. Then there is the fact that it seemed to be covered in fur, especially around the shoulder or head. With such features, especially with a head with a prominent brow bridge, there is every chance that this could be Bigfoot. Other parts of the photo add to the notion that he could be the legendary creature. For starters, the contrast of the creature in the setting and the light in the background seems to add to the mystique of the creature in the image. As usual, the many debates as to whether or not this was the real deal took place. That said, with many people fascinated by what they were looking at, there was every chance that this trail cam may have accidentally caught the image of the legendary cryptid that is Bigfoot. Hiker's encounter with Bigfoot. This time, we take a look at what this hiker encountered when he decided to set out on a trek. What started out as a walk to appreciate the beauty of nature turned out to be one of the most unexpected and extraordinary events of the man's life. Our hiker just happened to have his phone out when he stumbled across what looked to be a dead baby Sasquatch of all things. As you can imagine, this was one of the most unnerving things to come across in the woods. Looking at it, it was almost lifelike, so much so that the hiker could not help but feel like this was the real deal. It seemed to be so real that it even showed signs of decomposition as it lay there. That said, you could still make out much of its feature as he recorded the footage. For starters, anyone looking at the recording could notice the creature's large, veiny stomach. Aside from the seemingly hairless stomach, we can also notice the long, slender limbs that were attached to the creature. With that in mind, we can say that the lifelike nature of the dead creature is quite impressive. If it was a fake, it was a really good one. If indeed it was a hoax, the workmanship displayed in creating it is truly out of this world. Dare we say that if it was so lifelike that it was almost impossible to recreate. Looking at the footage of the creature, there is every hope that we can actually get the authorities to investigate what was out there.
Where was that? Jesus.
But at this point, this may not play out the way we'd like because, as we all know, the government loves to keep their cards close to their chest. Who knows, though? Maybe one day, we can truly discover if this was a baby Bigfoot. From being unnerved by the fabled cryptid as it was lurking in the shadows to the misfortune of coming across what looks to be a deceased infant hominid creature, here is the incredible new footage that proves that the legendary creature that is Bigfoot is real.